Jace Harrison's hand froze on the door handle, his breath catching like a man drowning. 43 women had begged to marry him in 5 years. He'd rejected every single one without a second thought. But this stranger standing in his doorway with storm-gray eyes and a worn traveling cloak wasn't asking to be his wife. She was asking for work. And that terrified him more than any proposal ever had. Because when she looked at him, she didn't see the richest rancher in Texas or the grief-stricken widower. She saw the truth he'd spent 8 years hiding, and his carefully built walls started crumbling before she even spoke her name. Before we continue, I'd love for you to subscribe to this channel and follow this story all the way to the end. And please, comment below with the city you're watching from. I want to see how far these stories travel. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, like all the others. Jace Harrison didn't even open it. He tossed it onto the pile with the rest. 42 letters from 42 women, all hoping to become Mrs. Harrison, all hoping to claim a piece of the largest cattle empire in West Texas. "Another one, boss?" Miguel, his foreman, asked from the barn entrance. "Another one." Jace's voice was flat. He turned back to the mare he was shoeing, his hands steady despite the knot in his stomach that never seemed to go away. Miguel whistled low. "That makes 43 this year. You know half the town's taking bets on when you'll finally say yes to one of them. Tell them to save their money." "Come on, Jace. It's been 8 years since—" "Don't." The word came out sharper than Jace intended. He straightened, wiping his hands on his work pants. "Don't say her name." Miguel held up his hands in surrender. "I'm just saying, a man can't live alone forever. This ranch needs cattle and horses, not a wife." But even as Jace said it, he knew it wasn't entirely true. The ranch was thriving. His cattle brought top dollar at every auction. His horses were sought after from California to Louisiana. He had more money than he could spend in 3 lifetimes. What he didn't have was a reason to spend it. The sun was setting when he finally went inside. The house, 20 rooms, imported furniture, crystal chandeliers his mother had insisted on before she passed, felt more like a museum than a home. Jace walked through it like a ghost, touching nothing, disturbing nothing. He poured himself a whiskey and sat in his father's old chair by the window. Outside, the land stretched endlessly in every direction. His land, his legacy, his prison. The knot came at exactly 7 o'clock. Jace's first thought was that Miguel had sent someone to bother him about the new fencing on the south pasture. His second thought was to ignore it entirely. But the knot came again, firm and insistent. He opened the door, expecting a ranch hand. Instead, he found her. She was covered in dust from the road, her dark hair falling loose from a braid that had probably started neat that morning. The traveling cloak she wore had seen better days, patched in 3 places, frayed at the hem. But it was her eyes that stopped him, gray like storm clouds, and just as unreadable. "Mr. Harrison?" Her voice was steady, no tremor of nerves. "Who's askin'?" "My name is Evelyn Hayes. I'm looking for work." Jace almost laughed. "You're in the wrong place. The saloon in town hires—" "Not that kind of work." She didn't flinch at the implication. "I can manage livestock, keep books, repair fence line. I can break horses if needed, though I prefer not to. I can read and write, calculate yield projections, and I know the difference between good hay and moldy hay that'll kill your stock." He studied her more carefully. She didn't look like a con artist, but then again, the best ones never did. "What makes you think I need help?" "Everyone needs help, Mr. Harrison. The question is whether you're smart enough to accept it when it shows up on your doorstep." That did make him laugh, a short, surprised bark of sound. "You always this bold with strangers?" Only when I'm desperate enough. The honesty in her answer caught him off guard. He should have closed the door. Should have sent her back to wherever she came from. But something in her eyes reminded him of himself. That look of someone who'd lost everything and was trying to claw their way back. 1 week, he heard himself say. You can stay in the guest cottage. Meals are at 6, noon, and 7. You'll work with Miguel in the hands. If you can't keep up, you leave. No argument. Agreed. And Miss Hayes? Yes? I'm not looking for a wife, just so we're clear. She met his gaze without blinking. Good. Neither am I. The next morning, Jace woke to find Evelyn already at work. Miguel found him at breakfast. Boss, you see that new woman you hired? What about her? She's already mucked out half the stables. And she fixed that broken gate in the East Corral, the one we've been meaning to get to for 2 weeks. Jace set down his coffee. It's barely 6 o'clock. I know. She was out there when I arrived at 5:30. Didn't even ask where anything was. Just figured it out herself. Something uncomfortable twisted in Jace's chest. He didn't like being impressed. Being impressed meant paying attention, and paying attention meant caring, and caring meant... He stood abruptly. I'll check on her. He found Evelyn in the corral with Titan, his most difficult stallion. The horse had thrown 3 experienced riders in the past month. Now he was standing perfectly still, while Evelyn ran her hands along his flank, speaking in a low, steady voice. You're angry, she was saying. I understand that. Someone hurt you, and now you think everyone will. But you're wrong. Not everyone breaks their promises. Titan's ears flicked back and forth, listening. Jace leaned against the fence rail. He doesn't usually let strangers near him. Evelyn didn't turn around. That's because most strangers see a difficult horse. I see a scared one. What's the difference? Difficult horses need breaking. Scared horses need understanding. She finally looked at him. Which one are you, Mr. Harrison? The question hit him like a physical blow. He straightened. I'm neither. Everyone's one or the other. Not me. Then you're a liar. She said it without malice, just stated it as a fact. And liars are the most scared of all. Jace felt his jaw tighten. You don't know anything about me. I know you live in a house big enough for 10 people and eat dinner alone every night. I know you've rejected 43 marriage proposals, but keep every letter in a stack on your desk. I know you haven't been to church in 8 years, but you still pay for the flowers on your mother's grave every Sunday. She turned back to Titan, her hands steady on his neck. And I know that whatever broke you, you've decided it's safer to stay broken than risk getting hurt again. How do you... The town talks, Mr. Harrison, and I listen. Jace wanted to fire her on the spot, wanted to throw her off his property and never see her again. But he couldn't, because she was right about all of it, and no one had been right about him in 8 years. The workday starts at 7, he said instead. Don't be late. I'm never late. He walked away before she could say anything else that would crack him open. 3 days passed. Evelyn worked harder than any man on the ranch. She was up before dawn and didn't stop until after dark. She never complained, never asked for special treatment, never once mentioned marriage or money or anything that might suggest she had ulterior motives. And it was driving Jace absolutely insane. She's different, Miguel said on the 4th evening, watching Evelyn help one of the younger ranch hands repair a saddle. Not like the others. There are no others, Jace muttered. I never hired the others. You know what I mean. Those women who wrote you letters. They wanted the ranch, the money, the status. This one just wants to work. Everyone wants something. Maybe. But what she wants and what those others wanted aren't the same thing. Jace didn't respond. He watched Evelyn demonstrate a complex stitching technique, her hands patient and sure. The young ranch hand was watching her like she'd hung the moon. That uncomfortable feeling twisted in his chest again. That night, he found himself walking to the guest cottage. He told himself it was to check on the property, make sure everything was in order. But when he got there, he saw a light in the window. Evelyn was sitting at the small table, writing in a leather-bound journal. Her hair was down, loose around her shoulders. In the lamplight, she looked younger, softer, beautiful. Jace turned around and walked back to the main house before that thought could take root. On the 5th day, everything changed. They were moving cattle to the north pasture when one of the younger steers bolted. It happened fast, a snake in the grass, a moment of panic, and suddenly 1,200 pounds of frightened animal was charging straight toward the ravine. "Jace!" Miguel shouted, but Evelyn was already moving. She spurred her horse forward, cutting across the steer's path with a precision that took Jace's breath away. She got ahead of it, turned her mount sideways, and the steer veered away from the ravine at the last possible second. The whole thing took maybe 15 seconds. When the dust settled, the steer was safe, and Evelyn was breathing hard, her face flushed with exertion. "Where did you learn to ride like that?" Jace demanded. "My father had a ranch in Montana, before we lost it." "Lost it how?" She looked at him, and for the first time, he saw real pain in her eyes. "Same way everyone loses everything. Bad luck and worse choices." "Is he dead?" "Both my parents. 3 years ago. Winter fever took them both in the same week." Jace felt something crack inside him. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. They had each other until the end. That's more than most people get." She rode away before he could respond, leaving him alone with the sudden, devastating realization that he understood her better than he'd understood anyone in 8 years. That night, he knocked on her cottage door. She opened it, surprised. "Mr. Harrison, is something wrong?" "Jace. Call me Jace." Her eyebrows rose slightly. "All right, Jace. Is something wrong?" "No, I just—" He trailed off, suddenly unsure why he'd come. "I wanted to thank you. For today. With the steer. I was just doing my job." It was more than that. They stood there in the doorway, the night air cool between them. Evelyn didn't invite him in, but she didn't close the door either. "Why did you really come here?" Jace asked. "To Dusty Ridge. To my ranch." She was quiet for a long moment. "Because I heard you were a man who understood loss, and I thought maybe that would make you kinder than most." "I'm not kind." "No," she agreed, "but you're fair, and fair is harder to find than kind." Something in the way she said it made Jace's chest ache. "What are you running from, Evelyn?" "The same thing you are. The past." "And what if the past catches up?" "Then we deal with it together." She paused. "Or we don't. But at least we won't be alone when it happens." Jace wanted to tell her she was wrong. Wanted to explain that being alone was safer, easier, better. But looking at her in the lamplight, strong and scarred and somehow still standing, he couldn't make himself believe it anymore. "Good night, Evelyn." "Good night, Jace." He walked back to the main house, with his heart pounding harder than it had in 8 years. The 6th day brought trouble. A man rode onto the property around noon, well-dressed, riding an expensive horse, carrying himself with a kind of confidence that came from money and power. "I'm looking for Evelyn Hayes," he announced, when Miguel intercepted him. Jace came out of the barn. "Who's asking?" "Thomas Whitmore, from Montana." The man's smile didn't reach his eyes. "I'm her fiancé." The word hit Jace like a bullet. "Her what?" "Fiancé. We were to be married last spring, but she ran off before the wedding. I've been looking for her ever since." Miguel glanced at Jace. Boss? But Jace was already moving toward the cottage where he'd last seen Evelyn. He found her in the garden, her hands dirty from pulling weeds. Evelyn. She looked up, saw his face, and went pale. He found me. Who is he? My father's business partner. After my parents died, he claimed my father owed him money. Said I could work off the debt by marrying him. Her hands were shaking. I said no. He said I didn't have a choice. Jace felt rage flood through him, hot and sharp and righteous. You always have a choice. Not in Montana. Not when you're a woman with no family and no money. You're not in Montana anymore. Thomas Whitmore appeared at the garden gate. Evelyn, darling, it's time to come home. This is my home now, Evelyn said quietly. Don't be ridiculous. You belong to me. Your father's debts were paid when the ranch sold, Jace interrupted. Montana law says a debt can't transfer to family members unless they sign the contract. Did you sign anything, Evelyn? No. Then you don't owe him anything. Thomas's smile turned cold. You don't know what you're getting into, cowboy. This is between me and my intended. Your intended is standing on my property, which makes it my business. She's a woman alone. She needs protection, guidance. She needs you to leave. Thomas took a step forward. Or what? Jace didn't move. Or I'll have my men escort you off my land, and if you come back, I'll have the sheriff arrest you for trespassing. You're making a mistake. No, you are. This is Texas. We treat women with respect here. Even carpetbaggers from Montana know that. For a moment, Thomas looked like he might argue, but Miguel and 3 other ranch hands had materialized behind Jace, their faces hard and unfriendly. This isn't over, Thomas said finally. Yes, Jace replied. It is. They watched him ride away in silence. When he was gone, Evelyn turned to Jace. Thank you. You don't have to thank me. He had no right. Why did you do it? Defend me like that? The question hung between them. Jace knew the answer, had known it since the moment she'd stood in his doorway with storm-cloud eyes and challenged him to be something more than broken. Because you were right, he said finally. I am scared. Scared of caring about someone again. Scared of losing them. But watching him try to claim you like you were property, he shook his head. That scared me more. Jace, I'm not asking you for anything, he said quickly. I just need you to know that as long as you're here, on this ranch, you're under my protection. No one will hurt you. No one will force you into anything. You have my word. Evelyn's eyes were bright with unshed tears. And what happens when I'm not on this ranch anymore? Then I'll figure that out when it happens. She reached out and took his hand. The first time she touched him deliberately. Her fingers were warm and calloused from work. I'm not going anywhere, Jace Harrison. And in that moment, standing in the garden with her hand in his, Jace felt the first wall around his heart begin to crumble. But Jace pulled his hand away. The movement was small, almost gentle, but Evelyn felt it like a door slamming shut. She watched his face close off, watched him step back into the safe distance he'd maintained for 8 years. I should get back to work, he said. Jace, the fence line won't repair itself. He was gone before she could stop him, leaving her standing alone in the garden with dirt under her fingernails and the ghost of his touch still warm on her skin. Miguel found her an hour later, still standing in the same spot. He does that, the foreman said quietly. Gets close, then runs. I know. My wife says it's because he's waiting for permission to be happy again. Like Maggie's ghost needs to give him a sign or something. Miguel shook his head. I think he's just scared that if he loves someone again, God will take them away too. Evelyn looked at him. What happened the day Maggie died? You should ask him. He won't tell me. Then maybe you're not supposed to know yet. But Evelyn had never been good at waiting for permission. That evening, after dinner, she went to the main house and knocked on Jace's study door. Come in. He was at his desk, ledgers spread out in front of him. He didn't look up when she entered. I need to know, she said, about Maggie. His pen stopped moving. That's none of your business. You made it my business when you defended me today, when you promised to protect me. That doesn't give you the right to... Tell me what happened, or I leave tomorrow morning. That got his attention. He looked up, his eyes sharp. You'd leave over this? I can't work for a man I don't understand, and I can't stay somewhere I'm not trusted with the truth. Jace stared at her for a long moment. Then he set down his pen and gestured to the chair across from him. Sit down. She sat. Maggie was the mayor's daughter, he began. Beautiful, kind, everything a man could want. We were engaged for 6 months. The whole town was excited. Biggest wedding Dusty Ridge had ever planned. He paused, his jaw working. The morning of the wedding, she went riding. Wanted to clear her head, she said. Her horse came back without her 2 hours later. Evelyn's chest tightened. We found her at the bottom of Miller's Ravine. Her neck was broken. The horse had spooked at a rattlesnake, threw her off the edge. His voice was completely flat now, like he was reading from a report. She died instantly, still in her riding clothes. The wedding dress was hanging in her room, waiting. Jace, I'm so... Don't. He held up a hand. Everyone was sorry. The whole town was sorry. But sorry doesn't bring people back. Sorry doesn't change anything. So you decided never to risk it again? I decided to be smart. Love makes you vulnerable. Vulnerable gets you hurt. Love also makes you human, Evelyn said quietly. Without it, you're just existing, not living. Existing is safer. Safer isn't better. They looked at each other across the desk. Jace's hands were clenched into fists, his knuckles white. Why are you pushing this? He asked finally. Because I see you, Jace, the real you. And he's worth fighting for, even if you don't think so. You don't know me. I know you pay your ranch hands double what anyone else does. I know you personally deliver food to the widow Thompson every Sunday. I know you saved a 3-legged dog last month and built him a special bed in the barn. She leaned forward. I know you're a good man, pretending to be a hard one. And I know you're lonely enough that it's killing you from the inside out. Jace stood abruptly. Get out. No. Evelyn, make me leave. Go ahead. Throw me out like you've thrown out everyone else who tried to care about you. I'm not throwing you out. I'm asking you to respect my privacy. Your privacy is a prison, and you're the only one keeping yourself locked inside. The words hung between them like a challenge. Jace's breathing was harsh, his eyes wild with something Evelyn couldn't quite name. Fear, anger, desperation. What do you want from me? He asked, and his voice cracked on the question. I want you to stop punishing yourself for being alive when she's not. The silence that followed was deafening. Then Jace walked past her, out of the study, down the hall, and out the front door into the night. Evelyn heard his horse moments later, hooves pounding away into the darkness. Miguel appeared in the doorway. He'll be back. How do you know? Because he always comes back, even when he doesn't want to. Jace didn't come back until dawn. Evelyn was already working when she saw him ride in, his clothes rumpled, his face exhausted. He dismounted, handed the reins to one of the stable boys, and walked straight to the barn without looking at her. She gave him an hour. Then she followed. He was in Titan's stall, brushing the stallion with slow, methodical strokes. He didn't acknowledge her when she leaned against the stall door. "My mother used to say that the worst prison is the one you build yourself," Evelyn said. "Because you're the only one with the key, but you're too scared to use it." Jace's hand stilled. "Your mother sounds like she was very wise." "She was. She was also wrong about a lot of things, but not that." "What else was she wrong about?" "She thought love was enough. That if you loved someone hard enough, nothing bad could happen to them." Evelyn's voice was steady, but Jace heard the pain underneath. "Then the fever came, and she learned the truth. Love doesn't protect anyone. It just makes the losing hurt more." Jace turned to face her. "Then why are you here? Why are you pushing me to feel something when you know how it ends?" "Because the alternative is worse. My parents had 23 years together. 23 years of laughter and arguments and making up and building something together. When they died, I was devastated. But I wasn't sorry they loved each other, because those 23 years made them happy, made them whole." She paused. "You got 6 months with Maggie. Don't let those 6 months steal the rest of your life. It's not that simple. It never is, but it's also not as complicated as you're making it." Jace set down the brush. "What if I let you in and something happens to you? What if Thomas comes back? What if there's another accident? What if none of that happens and you waste years being miserable for no reason? At least I'd still have control." "No," Evelyn said gently. "You'd have the illusion of control. And that's worse, because you'd be alone and lying to yourself about why." They stood there in the quiet barn, dust motes floating in the morning light. Titan nickered softly, pushing his nose against Jace's shoulder. "I don't know how to do this," Jace admitted. "How to let someone in again." "You start small, one day at a time, one conversation at a time." "And if I fail?" "Then you fail, but at least you tried." Jace looked at her, really looked at her, and saw someone who understood loss just as deeply as he did. Someone who'd chosen to keep living anyway. "Have dinner with me tonight," he said suddenly. "In the main house. Not as my employee. As my guest." Evelyn's eyes widened. "Jace, one dinner, that's all. If it's terrible, we never do it again." A slow smile spread across her face. "All right. One dinner. 7 o'clock. I'll be there." After she left, Jace leaned against the stall door and tried to remember the last time he'd felt this terrified and this hopeful at the same time. He couldn't. The day passed in a blur of nervous energy. Jace found himself checking the clock every 10 minutes. He changed shirts 3 times. He asked the cook to prepare Maggie's favorite meal, then changed his mind and asked for something completely different. By 6:30, he was pacing the dining room like a caged animal. Miguel watched him from the doorway, amused. "You know she's seen you covered in mud and horse shit, right? She's not going to care if the silverware matches." "I'm not nervous." "Boss, you've reorganized those napkins 4 times. I'm just making sure everything is..." The knock came at exactly 7 o'clock. Jace nearly tripped over his own feet getting to the door. When he opened it, his breath caught. Evelyn had changed into a simple blue dress, nothing fancy, probably borrowed from one of the ranch hand's wives. But her hair was down and brushed until it shone, and she'd washed the dust from her face. She was beautiful. "Hi," she said, suddenly shy. "Hi." Jace stepped aside. "Come in." The dinner was awkward at first. They sat across from each other at the long table, too much space between them, neither quite sure what to say now that they were here. "This is strange," Evelyn said finally. "Very strange." We work together every day, but sitting here feels like we're strangers. Exactly. She laughed, and the sound broke some of the tension. Okay, new rule. We talk like we always do. No formality. No pretending. Agreed. Good. So tell me why you really have 43 letters on your desk. Jace blinked. I told you, they're marriage proposals. I know what they are. I want to know why you keep them. He was quiet for a moment, considering. Proof, I guess. Of what? That I'm doing the right thing, staying alone. Every time I read one of those letters, I remember why I can't give them what they want. Which is? Love, partnership, a future. I can't promise any of that when I know how fast it can be taken away. Evelyn set down her fork. You know what I think those letters really are? What? Permission. You keep them because some part of you wants to say yes. But as long as they're just letters, you don't have to risk anything. You can tell yourself you're protecting yourself when really, you're just hiding. Jace felt something sharp twist in his chest. You don't pull punches, do you? Not when it matters. And this matters. Yes. She looked at him steadily. Because I think you're worth saving. Even from yourself. They ate in silence for a while after that. But it was a comfortable silence now. The kind that didn't need filling. When the meal was finished, Jace walked her to the door. They stood on the porch, the night air cool and full of stars. Thank you for dinner, Evelyn said. Thank you for coming. We should do this again. We should. She started down the steps, then turned back. Jace? Yeah? Those 43 women who wrote you letters? They didn't know you. They wanted the idea of you. The money, the ranch, the status. But I know you. The real you. And I'm not going anywhere. She was gone before he could respond, disappearing into the darkness toward the guest cottage. Jace stood on the porch for a long time after she left, his heart pounding against his ribs like it was trying to break free. The next morning brought trouble of a different kind. Jace was in the barn when Sheriff Dawson rode up, his face grim. Jace, we need to talk. What's wrong? Thomas Whitmore filed a complaint. Says you're harboring a criminal. Jace felt ice flood his veins. Evelyn's not a criminal. He's claiming she stole money from him. $5,000. Says he has documentation proving she was his fiancée and that she fled with his property. That's a lie. Maybe, but I have to investigate. It's the law. So investigate. You'll find nothing. I need to talk to her. Ask some questions. Jace's jaw clenched. She doesn't have to talk to you without a lawyer present. Is there a reason she'd need a lawyer? Is there a reason you're taking a stranger's word over mine? Sheriff Dawson sighed. This isn't personal, Jace. But if he's got paperwork, then it's forged. Evelyn came here with nothing. No money, no belongings except what she could carry. You think a woman who stole $5,000 would be mucking out stables for room and board? I think people do strange things when they're running scared. She's not running from the law. She's running from a man who thinks he owns her. Can you prove that? Can he prove she stole from him? They stared at each other. Finally, Dawson shook his head. I'll look into it. But Jace, if his paperwork checks out, I'll have to bring her in. Over my dead body. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. After the sheriff left, Jace found Evelyn in the north pasture. She took one look at his face and went pale. What happened? He told her. Everything. When he finished, she sat down hard on a fence rail. He's not going to stop. No, but neither am I. Jace, if he's fabricated documents, then we'll prove they're fake. How? I don't have any paperwork. My parents' ranch sold at auction. Everything was lost. I have no proof of anything. Then we'll find another way. There is no other way. It's his word against mine, and he's a wealthy businessman from Montana. I'm nobody. You're not nobody, Jace said fiercely, and I won't let him take you. Evelyn looked at him, her eyes bright with tears she refused to shed. Why are you doing this, risking everything for me? Because you're right. I've been hiding, existing instead of living. But these past 2 weeks with you, I felt more alive than I have in 8 years. He took her hands. I can't promise I won't mess this up. I can't promise I won't get scared and push you away again. But I can promise that I will fight for you, no matter what it takes. Chase, I'm falling for you, Evelyn. I've been falling since the moment you stood in my doorway and called me a liar. And I'm done pretending I'm not. She kissed him then, urgent and desperate and full of everything they'd both been holding back. Jace pulled her close, his hands in her hair, his heart racing. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Evelyn pressed her forehead to his. We're going to lose everything if we do this, she whispered. Then we lose everything together. I'm serious. Thomas has money and power and I have you. That's enough. But even as he said it, Jace knew it wasn't true. Money and power always won in the end, and Thomas Whitmore had both in abundance. The question was whether love could be stronger than either. He was about to find out. The answer came 3 days later, when Thomas Whitmore returned with a federal marshal. Jace was repairing fence line when he saw the 2 men riding up the main road. His stomach dropped. Federal marshals didn't show up unless someone had serious money and serious connections. Evelyn, he shouted toward the barn. Get inside the house, now! She came running, saw the riders, and froze. Jace! Inside. Don't come out until I tell you. I'm not hiding. You're not getting arrested either. Go. For once, she didn't argue. She ran toward the main house, just as the marshal and Thomas reached the yard. Jace Harrison? The marshal dismounted, his badge gleaming in the afternoon sun. That's right. I'm Marshal Garrett. I have a warrant for the arrest of Evelyn Hayes on charges of theft and breach of contract. Jace's hands clenched. On whose evidence? Thomas stepped forward, smiling. Mine. I have signed contracts, bank records, and 3 witnesses who will testify that Evelyn stole $5,000 and fled the state to avoid prosecution. That's a lie. Then she can prove it in court. Montana court, where the crime occurred. Jace looked at Marshal Garrett. You came all the way from Montana for this? Mr. Whitmore is a respected businessman. When someone of his standing files federal charges, we take it seriously. And when a woman runs from a man trying to force her into marriage, you take that seriously too? Thomas laughed. Force her? We were engaged. She got cold feet and decided to steal my money instead of admitting she'd changed her mind. Show me the engagement contract, Jace demanded. Thomas pulled papers from his coat. Right here, signed by Evelyn Hayes and witnessed by 2 attorneys. Jace grabbed the papers, scanned them quickly. The signature looked like Evelyn's handwriting. The dates matched her story about when Thomas had proposed. But something was wrong. This says the engagement was contingent on debt repayment, Jace said slowly. That's not an engagement contract. That's indentured servitude. Call it what you want. It's legal in Montana. Not in Texas. Jace looked at Marshal Garrett. This contract wouldn't hold up in any Texas court. She's a resident here now. She committed the crime in Montana. Montana law applies. She didn't commit any crime. She refused to be sold like property. Thomas's smile faded. Marshal, are you going to arrest her or not? Where is she? Jace stepped between the marshal and the house. You'll have to go through me first. Mr. Harrison, I don't want trouble, but I have a warrant. And I have rights. This is my property. You need the sheriff present to execute that warrant. We passed Sheriff Dawson on the way in. He's right behind us. As if summoned, Dawson rode into the yard moments later, his face grave. Jace, don't make this harder. Don't make what harder? Protecting an innocent woman from a criminal dressed up as a businessman? The law says a lot of things, doesn't make all of them right. Miguel appeared from the barn, followed by 6 ranch hands. They positioned themselves behind Jace, their faces hard. Boss? Miguel asked quietly. Nobody touches her. Thomas's face went red. This is absurd. Marshal, arrest him for obstruction. Mr. Harrison, Garrett said carefully, I understand you're trying to protect her, but if she's innocent, she'll have her day in court. In Montana, where he owns half the judges? Jace shook his head. She won't get a fair trial. Then she can appeal. But right now, I have a legal warrant and I'm going to execute it. The tension in the yard was thick enough to cut. Jace's ranch hand stood ready, Miguel's hand resting on the gun at his hip. Sheriff Dawson looked torn between duty and friendship. Then Evelyn stepped out of the house. Don't, Jace said immediately. I'm not letting you start a war over me. She walked down the steps, her head high. Marshal, I'll come peacefully. But I'm telling you right now, everything Thomas Whitmore has said is a lie. You'll have a chance to defend yourself in court. Will I? Or will I end up in a Montana jail cell waiting for a trial that never comes? Thomas stepped forward. You should have thought of that before you stole from me. I never stole anything. You tried to buy me with my father's debts, and when I refused, you fabricated evidence. Prove it. I will. Marshal Garrett took out handcuffs. Jace moved instinctively, but Evelyn caught his arm. Don't, she said softly. This won't help. I can't just let them. Yes, you can. Because fighting them here means people get hurt, and I won't have blood on my hands. She looked up at him, her eyes fierce. Promise me you'll find another way. Evelyn, promise me. I promise. She kissed him quickly, desperately, then turned to the marshal. Let's go. Jace watched them put her in handcuffs, watched them help her onto a horse, watched Thomas Whitmore smile like he'd already won. When they were gone, Miguel put a hand on his shoulder. What now, boss? Now. Jace turned toward the house, his mind already working. Now we fight dirty. The lawyer arrived from San Antonio 2 days later. His name was Marcus Webb, and he'd made his reputation defending women against fraudulent marriage contracts. He was expensive, ruthless, and exactly what Jace needed. Tell me everything, Webb said, spreading papers across Jace's desk. Jace told him about Evelyn showing up at his door, about Thomas Whitmore's claims, about the forged engagement contract and the theft charges. Webb listened, taking notes. When Jace finished, the lawyer sat back. This is going to be difficult. I don't care how difficult it is. I want her back. Whitmore has evidence, signed contracts, bank records, witnesses. Even if some of it's fabricated, proving that in court will be nearly impossible. So what do? We don't fight his evidence. We fight his credibility. Webb pulled out a file. I did some digging before I came here. Thomas Whitmore isn't the upstanding businessman he claims to be. He's been involved in 3 separate fraud investigations in Montana. None of them stuck, because he has judges in his pocket. But the evidence is there. Jace leaned forward. What kind of fraud? Land deals, mostly. Convincing widows to sign over property in exchange for protection that never materializes. Forging documents to claim mineral rights. He's a con man with a good suit and better lawyers. Can we use that? In a Montana court? No. but we're not going to Montana. The warrant was issued in Montana, but Evelyn is a Texas resident now, and the alleged crime occurred during a period when she was under duress. We can argue that Texas has jurisdiction because she fled here to escape coercion. If we can get a Texas judge to agree, we can fight the extradition. Hope flared in Jace's chest. How long will that take? Weeks, maybe months, and it'll cost you. I don't care about the money. It's not just money. Whitmore will fight back. He'll dig into your past, your business, anything he can use against you. Are you prepared for that? Jace thought about Maggie, about the whispers that had followed him for 8 years, about the letters on his desk, and the life he'd built around his pain. Yes, he said. I'm prepared. Webb nodded. Then let's get to work. The first hearing was set for the following week in Austin. Jace rode through the night to get there, arriving at the courthouse just as dawn broke. Webb met him on the steps. They're bringing her in from the jail now, the lawyer said. She's been held in isolation, standard procedure for out-of-state prisoners. Jace's jaw clenched. Is she all right? Physically, yes, but Harrison, you need to prepare yourself. Whitmore's lawyers are going to try to paint her as a criminal, and you as a fool being manipulated by a pretty face. Let them try. They entered the courtroom just as Evelyn was brought in. She was thinner, paler, her wrists raw from the handcuffs. But when she saw Jace, her face lit up. "You came," she mouthed. "Always," he mouthed back. The judge entered, and everyone stood. Judge Sarah Morrison was known for being fair, but tough. Webb had said that was their best chance. "This is a hearing on the matter of extradition for one Evelyn Hayes," Morrison began. "Mr. Webb, you're arguing against extradition?" "Yes, Your Honor. Miss Hayes is a Texas resident who fled Montana under extreme duress. The charges against her are fabricated, and sending her back to Montana would put her in grave danger." Thomas Whitmore's lawyer, a slick man named Caldwell, stood. "Your Honor, this is a simple case of theft. Miss Hayes stole $5,000 and fled the state. The warrant is valid, and Montana has jurisdiction." "Miss Hayes has been a resident of Texas for over 2 months," Webb countered. "She works for Mr. Jace Harrison, one of the most respected ranchers in the state. She pays taxes here. She's established residency. She's a fugitive, hiding behind a wealthy man's protection. She's a woman escaping an illegal contract that amounts to slavery." Morrison held up a hand. "Enough. I want to hear from Miss Hayes herself. Miss Hayes, please stand." Evelyn stood, her chains rattling. Jace's hands clenched into fists. "Miss Hayes, did you sign a contract agreeing to marry Thomas Whitmore?" "I signed a document under duress, Your Honor. After my parents died, Mr. Whitmore claimed my father owed him money. He said the only way to settle the debt was for me to marry him. When I refused, he threatened to have me arrested." "So you fled to Texas?" "Yes, Your Honor. I had nowhere else to go." "And you took $5,000 from Mr. Whitmore when you left?" "No, Your Honor. I took nothing except the clothes on my back and my mother's locket." Caldwell stood again. "Your Honor, we have bank records showing—" "I'd like to see those records," Morrison interrupted. Caldwell hesitated. "They're in Montana, Your Honor." "Then get them. This hearing is adjourned until you can produce actual evidence beyond Mr. Whitmore's word." She banged her gavel. "Miss Hayes will remain in custody, but I'm transferring her to a local facility where Mr. Harrison can visit. We'll reconvene in 2 weeks." It wasn't freedom, but it was something. After the hearing, Jace managed to speak to Evelyn briefly through the bars of the holding cell. "I'm going to get you out of this," he promised. "I know," She reached through the bars, touching his face. "But Jace, if this goes badly—" "It won't." "If it does, I need you to promise me something." "Anything." "Don't let this destroy you. Don't go back to being that man who was too scared to live." "I'm not leaving you." "You might not have a choice." "There's always a choice. You taught me that." The guard came then, pulling her away. Jace watched her go, his heart breaking. Outside, Webb was waiting. "We've got 2 weeks to find something that destroys Whitmore's credibility. Any ideas?" "Yeah," Jace said grimly. "I'm going to Montana." The journey north took 5 days. Jace rode hard, stopping only to rest his horse. Miguel had wanted to come, but Jace needed him at the ranch. This was something he had to do alone. Montana was colder than Texas, the sky gray and heavy with coming snow. He found Whitmore's estate on the outskirts of Helena, a sprawling mansion that screamed new money. But Jace wasn't here for the mansion. He was here for the people Whitmore had hurt before Evelyn. The first woman he found was named Catherine Miller. She lived in a small house on the edge of town, her hands worn from taking in laundry to survive. "Thomas Whitmore?" she spat when Jace mentioned the name. "That man's a devil. Convinced my late husband to invest in a mining operation that didn't exist. When my husband died, Whitmore claimed the debt transferred to me. Said I could work it off as his housekeeper." "Did you?" "For 6 months, until I realized he wasn't paying off any debt. He was just using me. When I tried to leave, he threatened to have me arrested for theft." "What did you do?" "I had a brother in Colorado who sent me train fare. I left in the middle of the night and never looked back." She looked at Jace. "Why are you asking about him?" "He's trying to do the same thing to someone I love." Catherine's eyes softened. "Then you stop him, whatever it takes. Men like Whitmore don't stop until someone makes them." Jace found 3 more women with similar stories. Each one had been trapped, threatened, manipulated. Each one had escaped by the skin of their teeth. But none of them would testify. Whitmore's reach was too long, his threats too real. Until Jace found Anna Peterson. Anna was different. Older, harder, angrier. She ran a boarding house in Helena and had no patience for men who thought they could intimidate her. "Whitmore?" She laughed bitterly. "That bastard killed my sister." Jace went still. "What?" "Not literally, but close enough. My sister Mary was engaged to him 5 years ago. Beautiful girl, full of life. Whitmore convinced her to sign over her inheritance as a wedding gift. Soon as the ink was dry, he called off the wedding, said she wasn't suitable. Mary was so ashamed she took her own life 2 months later. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't help. But if you're planning to take him down, I'll help. I've been waiting 5 years for someone to try. I need evidence, documentation, something that proves he's done this before." Anna's smile was sharp. "Oh, honey, I've got documentation. Mary kept every letter, every contract, every lie he ever told her. I've been saving them, waiting for the right moment." She pulled out a leather satchel. "This right moment enough for you?" Jace took the satchel with shaking hands. Inside were dozens of documents, all showing a pattern of fraud, coercion, and manipulation going back years. This could ruin him. That's the idea. Make sure it does. Jace rode back to Texas faster than he'd come, the satchel strapped to his chest like armor. He went straight to Webb's office in San Antonio. The lawyer spread the documents across his desk, his eyes widening with each page. "This is incredible," Webb breathed. "This is exactly what we need. A clear pattern of behavior, multiple victims, documented fraud. Will it be enough?" More than enough. With this, we can not only fight the extradition, we can file countercharges against Whitmore for fraud and attempted coercion. How long until the next hearing? 3 days. Can you get these women to testify? Anna Peterson will. The others are too scared. Peterson's enough. Between her testimony and these documents, we can bury him. For the first time in weeks, Jace felt hope. Real, solid hope. What about Evelyn? Can I see her? Visiting hours are until 6. Go. Jace ran. He found Evelyn in the jail's common room, reading a book someone had given her. When she saw him, she dropped it and rushed to the bars. Jace, you look terrible. I've been to Montana. Her eyes widened. What? Why? He told her everything. About the women Whitmore had hurt. About Anna Peterson and her sister. About the documents that would prove Evelyn's innocence. When he finished, she was crying. You did that for me? I'd do anything for you. You could have been hurt. Whitmore's dangerous. So am I when someone threatens what's mine. She laughed through her tears. I'm yours now? If you'll have me. Jace Harrison, I've been yours since the moment I knocked on your door. He kissed her through the bars, tasting salt and hope, and the future they were going to build together. 3 more days, he whispered. Then we end this. Promise? I promise. The second hearing was packed. Word had spread about the case. The rich rancher fighting for his woman against the corrupt businessman from Montana. Half of Dusty Ridge had made the trip to Austin to show support. Thomas Whitmore sat in the front row, his lawyers surrounding him like a shield. He looked confident, smug even. He wouldn't be for long. Judge Morrison entered, and the room fell silent. We're here to continue the extradition hearing for Evelyn Hayes, she began. Mr. Caldwell, do you have the bank records I requested? Caldwell stood, but before he could speak, Webb rose. Your Honor, I'd like to present new evidence that directly contradicts Mr. Whitmore's claims. Proceed. Webb called Anna Peterson to the stand. She walked up with her head high, glaring at Whitmore the entire time. Miss Peterson, how do you know Thomas Whitmore? He was engaged to my sister 5 years ago. He defrauded her of her inheritance and drove her to suicide. The courtroom erupted. Morrison banged her gavel. Order! Caldwell jumped up. Objection! This is completely irrelevant to... It establishes a pattern of behavior, Webb said calmly. Mr. Whitmore has a history of targeting vulnerable women, manipulating them into signing fraudulent contracts, and then using the legal system to silence them when they resist. This is absurd, Whitmore shouted. I won't sit here and you'll sit down and be quiet, Morrison snapped. Mr. Webb, show me what you have. Webb presented the documents. All of them. Letters, contracts, testimonies from 4 other women. A paper trail of fraud going back 7 years. Morrison read through them in silence. The longer she read, the darker her expression became. Finally, she looked up at Whitmore. Mr. Whitmore, did you or did you not engage in a pattern of fraudulent contracts with vulnerable women? Those documents they're out of context. Did you or did you not attempt to coerce Evelyn Hayes into marriage using fabricated debt? She owed me. Answer the question, yes or no. Whitmore's face went red. She signed a contract. A contract that amounts to indentured servitude, which is illegal in both Montana and Texas. Morrison turned to Caldwell. Does your client have any legitimate evidence of theft? Caldwell shuffled papers. The bank records don't exist, Webb said, because there was no theft. Mr. Whitmore fabricated the entire claim to force Miss Hayes back to Montana, where he could control the legal proceedings. Morrison's expression was ice. Marshal Garrett, Please arrest Thomas Whitmore on charges of fraud, falsifying legal documents, and filing false charges with a federal officer. The courtroom exploded again. Whitmore tried to run, but the marshal grabbed him. "This isn't over," Whitmore screamed as they dragged him away. "I'll destroy you, all of you." But his voice faded as they took him out of the courtroom, and Jace felt the weight of the past weeks lift from his shoulders. Morrison banged her gavel one final time. "Miss Hayes, you're free to go. All charges are dropped. And Mr. Harrison?" "Yes, Your Honor?" "You're a good man. Don't let anyone tell you different." They released Evelyn from custody right there in the courtroom. She ran to Jace, and he caught her, lifting her off her feet, holding her like he'd never let go. "It's over," he whispered into her hair. "It's over," she agreed. And for the first time in 8 years, Jace Harrison believed in happy endings again. But freedom came with a price Jace hadn't anticipated. The ride back to Dusty Ridge took 2 days, and with every mile, Jace felt the weight of what he'd done settling over him. He'd exposed himself in that courtroom, told the whole town, the whole state, that he cared about someone, that he was willing to fight for her. That terrified him more than facing Whitmore ever had. Evelyn rode beside him, quiet but watchful. She'd always been able to read him too well. "You're pulling away again," she said finally. "I'm not." "Jace, I can feel it. You're right here next to me, but you're already building walls." He wanted to deny it, wanted to tell her she was wrong, but she wasn't. "What if I can't do this?" The words came out before he could stop them. "What if I got you back, and I still can't be what you need?" "What do I need?" "Someone who isn't broken. Someone who can love you without being afraid every second that something will take you away." Evelyn pulled her horse to a stop. Jace did the same, turning to face her. "You think I'm not afraid?" she asked. "You think I don't wake up every morning wondering if this is all going to fall apart?" "Jace, fear doesn't mean you're broken. It means you're human, and humans are allowed to be scared and still show up anyway." "What if showing up isn't enough?" "Then we figure it out together, but you don't get to make that decision alone. Not anymore." They stared at each other across the space between their horses. Finally, Jace nodded. "Together," he said. "Together," she agreed. They rode the rest of the way in silence, but it was a different kind of silence now, the kind that felt like a promise. Dusty Ridge welcomed them home like heroes. The whole town turned out when they rode in, cheering and shouting congratulations. Miguel had organized a celebration at the ranch, and half the county showed up. But Jace found himself standing on the edge of the party, watching Evelyn laugh with the ranch hands' wives, and feeling like a stranger in his own life. "You did a good thing, boss," Miguel said, appearing at his elbow with 2 glasses of whiskey. "Did I?" "You saved her. You fought for her. That's more than most men would do." "Most men aren't terrified they're going to ruin everything." Miguel laughed. "Welcome to love, my friend. Terror is part of the package." "How do you do it? How do you trust that it won't all fall apart?" "I don't. My wife and I have been married 12 years, and I still wake up some mornings scared she's going to realize she could do better." Miguel took a drink. "But I show up anyway. I tell her I love her anyway. I choose her every day, even when I'm scared. That's all you can do. What if it's not enough? Then you tried. But Jace, between you and me, that woman in there didn't fall for the richest rancher in Texas. She fell for the scared, broken man who was brave enough to fight for her anyway. Don't take that away from her by pretending you're someone you're not." Miguel walked away, leaving Jace alone with thoughts that felt too big for his chest. He found Evelyn an hour later, sitting on the porch steps, away from the noise. There you are, she said. I was starting to think you'd run off. Thought about it. But you didn't. No, I didn't. He sat beside her. Evelyn, I need to tell you something. All right? I'm going to mess this up. I'm going to get scared and pull away. I'm going to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing or freeze when I should act. I'm going to be a terrible partner sometimes because I don't know how to do this. Okay? He blinked. Okay? Jace, I already know all that. I've known it from the beginning. And I'm still here. Why? Because you're also going to show up when I meet you. You're going to fight for me even when you're terrified. You're going to be honest when it's hard and vulnerable when it hurts. You're going to choose me even when every instinct you have tells you to run. She took his hand. That's worth a few mess-ups. You make it sound easy. It's not, but it's worth it. They sat together in the darkness, listening to the party wind down behind them. And for the first time since the trial, Jace let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, he could do this. The first real test came a week later. Jace woke from a nightmare, drenched in sweat, his heart racing. In the dream, Evelyn had been riding, and her horse had thrown her. He'd found her at the bottom of Miller's Ravine, exactly where they'd found Maggie. He got out of bed, pulled on his pants, and walked to the guest cottage without thinking. He knocked, waited, knocked again. Evelyn opened the door, her hair loose, wearing a nightgown. Jace, it's 3 a.m. I know, I needed to see that you were okay. Understanding dawned in her eyes. Nightmare? He nodded, not trusting his voice. She stepped aside. Come in. He hesitated. He'd never been inside the cottage at night. Never let himself get that close. Jace, come in. He stepped over the threshold, and she closed the door behind him. The cottage was small, cozy, personal in a way the main house had never been. Tell me about it, she said, guiding him to sit on the small sofa. It was stupid, just a dream. Dreams aren't stupid, especially not the ones that wake you up in a panic. He told her about finding her dead, about the ravine, about how his brain kept mixing her up with Maggie until he couldn't tell which loss he was mourning. When he finished, Evelyn was quiet for a long moment. Do you regret it? She asked finally. Saving me from Whitmore? Getting involved? No, never. But you're scared it'll end the same way Maggie did. Every day. Every single day. Jace, look at me. She waited until he met her eyes. I'm not Maggie. What happened to her was a tragedy, but it wasn't your fault. And it's not going to happen to me. You can't know that. You're right, I can't. But I can tell you that I'm careful. I don't take stupid risks. I check my equipment and my horse before every ride. I pay attention to the trail. I'm not reckless. Maggie wasn't reckless either. No, but she also didn't have someone who loved her enough to wake up in a panic and check on her at 3 a.m. You're not the same man you were 8 years ago, Jace. And this isn't the same relationship. How do you always know what to say? I don't, but I know you. And I know that the only way through this is to keep talking, even when it's hard, even when it's 3 a.m. and you're scared out of your mind. He pulled her close, breathing in the scent of her hair, feeling her heartbeat steady against his chest. Stay, she whispered. Just for tonight. I don't want you to be alone. He should have said no, should have maintained the distance, but he was so tired of being alone. Okay, he said, just for tonight. He fell asleep on her sofa, and for the first time in 8 years, he slept through until morning, without nightmares. But small towns talk, and by noon the next day, everyone knew Jace had spent the night at Evelyn's cottage. Mrs. Patterson, the mayor's wife, cornered him at the general store. "Mr. Harrison, I'm sure you're aware of the impropriety of your situation." "What situation would that be, Mrs. Patterson?" "A single woman living on your property. You spending nights in her cottage? It's unseemly." "She works for me." "That's not all she is to you, and we both know it. This town has standards, Mr. Harrison. If you care about this woman's reputation—" "I care about her happiness, her safety. Whether people talk is their business, not mine." "People are already talking, and not kindly." Jace felt anger flash through him. "Then they can talk to me directly, instead of gossiping like children." He walked out before she could respond, but the damage was done. By evening, Miguel reported that 3 ranch hands' wives had refused to let their husbands work alongside Evelyn. "They're saying she's a fallen woman," Miguel said quietly. "That you're taking advantage of her." "That's ridiculous." "I know, but you know how this town is. Appearance matters as much as truth." Jace found Evelyn in the barn, brushing down Titan. Her face was carefully neutral, but he could see the tension in her shoulders. "You heard," he said. "Hard not to. Mrs. Patterson made sure to tell me exactly what everyone thinks of me." "I'll talk to them. I'll make them understand." "You can't make people think differently, Jace. They've decided I'm some kind of temptress who seduced the grieving rancher. Nothing you say will change that." "Then we leave. We'll go somewhere else, start over." She turned to face him. "Run away? That's your solution?" "It's better than watching them tear you apart." "No, it's not. Running away means they win. Means Whitmore was right about me being nothing but trouble." She set down the brush. "There's only one way to stop the gossip." "How?" "You marry me." The words hung in the air between them. Jace felt his chest tighten. "Evelyn, I'm not proposing. I'm stating a fact. If you want to protect my reputation and stop the talk, you marry me. Make it official. Make it clear I'm not your kept woman. I'm your wife." "That's not how I want it to happen. Not because we're forced into it by gossip." "And I didn't want to be arrested and dragged to court. But we dealt with that together, didn't we?" Her voice was sharp now. "This is the reality, Jace. You either commit or you let me go. There's no in-between anymore." "You're giving me an ultimatum." "I'm giving you a choice. The same choice you've been avoiding since the day I knocked on your door." "I need time to—" "No. You've had 8 years, Jace. You don't need more time. You need courage. And if you can't find it, then maybe everyone's right about us." She walked past him, leaving him alone in the barn with his racing heart and the weight of a decision he wasn't ready to make. Jace spent 3 days avoiding her. He threw himself into ranch work, riding fence lines until dark, staying in the main house, keeping his distance. Every time he saw her, he felt panic claw at his throat. Marriage. The word felt like a trap closing around him. On the 4th day, he rode out to Maggie's grave. He hadn't been there in years. The tombstone was simple, well maintained by the groundskeeper he paid. Fresh flowers, ones he'd never seen before. "Evelyn's been coming here," a voice said behind him. He turned to find Father Michael, the town priest, standing a respectful distance away. "What?" "Miss Hayes. She's been visiting Maggie's grave every Sunday since the trial. Brings flowers, sits for a while, talks to her." "Why would she do that?" "Why don't you ask her?" Father Michael moved closer. "Jace, I married you and Maggie. I've known you since you were a boy. and I've never seen you as lost as you are right now. I don't know what to do. Yes, you do. You're just afraid to do it. What if I lose her like I lost Maggie? What if you don't? What if you get 50 years together instead of 6 months? Would you give up 50 years because you're afraid of losing them? It's not that simple. It never is. But Jace, Maggie would want you to be happy. She'd want you to love again. She'd hate knowing you've spent 8 years punishing yourself for her death. How do you know what she'd want? Because she told me. The week before she died, she came to confession, said she was worried about you, that you loved too hard, cared too much, and she was afraid if something happened to her, you'd blame yourself and never move on. Jace felt tears sting his eyes. She said that? She made me promise that if anything happened, I'd remind you that love isn't about holding on. It's about letting go when you need to, and opening up when someone new comes along. Father Michael put a hand on his shoulder. Evelyn came along, Jace, and Maggie would have liked her. How do you know? Because Maggie was strong and independent and didn't take your nonsense, and so is Evelyn. You've got a type, my friend, stubborn women who see through your walls. Despite everything, Jace laughed. Yeah, I guess I do. So what are you going to do about it? Jace looked at Maggie's grave, at the flowers Evelyn had left, and suddenly he knew. I'm going to stop being afraid, he said. He found Evelyn in the north pasture, working with the new calves. We need to talk, he said. She didn't look at him. I'm working. Evelyn, please. She set down the medical kit she'd been using and turned to face him. Her eyes were guarded. I went to Maggie's grave today, Jace said. Father Michael told me you've been visiting. I wanted to tell her thank you. For what? For loving you. For teaching you how to care about someone. For breaking your heart so completely that when you finally decided to risk it again, you'd know how valuable it was. Jace felt his throat tighten. Evelyn, I'm not competing with her, Jace. I never was. But I need you to understand something. I love you. Not the version of you that you think you should be. Not the rich rancher or the grieving widower. I love the man who wakes up at 3 in the morning to check if I'm okay. The man who rode to Montana to save me. The man who's terrified and shows up anyway. I know. Do you? Because you've been avoiding me for 4 days. 4 days, Jace. That's not what people do when they love each other. I was scared. I know you're scared. I'm scared too. But I can't be the only one fighting for this. If you don't want to marry me, fine. But tell me now so I can move on. Because I can't keep living in this in-between place where I don't know if you're going to choose me or choose your fear. Jace took a deep breath. This was it. The moment he'd been running from for 8 years. I choose you, he said. I'm terrified, and I'm going to mess up, and I'm probably going to panic again. But I choose you, every day, for as long as you'll have me. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. What are you saying? I'm saying marry me. Not because the town is gossiping, or because it's the proper thing to do. Marry me because I love you, and I can't imagine my life without you in it. Marry me because you make me braver than I've ever been. Marry me because when I think about the future, you're the only thing I see. Jace. He dropped to one knee, right there in the pasture, dirt on his pants, dust in his hair. Evelyn Hayes, will you marry me? She was crying now, full tears streaming down her face. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Even though you're terrified? Especially because I'm terrified. Because you're worth being terrified for. She pulled him to his feet and kissed him, hard and desperate, and full of every emotion they'd both been holding back. Yes, she said against his mouth. Yes, yes, Yes. They got married 3 weeks later. Not a grand wedding like Maggie's would have been, just a simple ceremony in the ranch house with Father Michael officiating and the ranch hands as witnesses. Evelyn wore a simple white dress that one of the hands' wives had helped her make. Jace wore his best suit and his father's pocket watch. When Father Michael asked if anyone objected, Jace held his breath. No one spoke. Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Jace, you may kiss your bride. Jace kissed her like she was air and he'd been drowning. When they broke apart, everyone cheered. Mrs. Patterson had shown up, Jace noticed. She looked disapproving, but she was there. That was something. The reception was small but joyful. Miguel made a toast about Jace finally pulling his head out of his ass. The ranch hands' wives grudgingly admitted that Evelyn looked beautiful. And through it all, Jace held Evelyn's hand and felt something he hadn't felt in 8 years. Hope. That night, after everyone had left, Jace and Evelyn stood on the porch of the main house. Their house now. "Are you happy?" he asked. "Terrified," she said. "But yes, happy. Me too. You know what this means, right? We're stuck with each other now, for better or worse." "I'm counting on worse. I do my best work under pressure." She laughed, and the sound filled something in his chest he hadn't known was empty. "Take me to bed, husband." "Yes, wife." They went inside together, closing the door on the past and opening it to whatever future they'd build together. And for the first time in 8 years, Jace Harrison wasn't afraid of what tomorrow might bring. Because whatever came, they'd face it together. But marriage didn't erase fear overnight. 3 months after the wedding, Jace woke to find Evelyn's side of the bed empty. He found her on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, staring at the pre-dawn sky. "Can't sleep?" he asked. She didn't turn around. "I'm pregnant." The words hit him like a physical blow. He grabbed the porch railing to steady himself. "You're sure?" "I've known for 2 weeks. I just didn't know how to tell you." 2 weeks? Evelyn, why didn't you? "Because I knew you'd react like this. Like it's the end of the world instead of the beginning of something beautiful." Jace's mind was racing. A baby. A child. Another person to love and lose and... "Stop," Evelyn said sharply. "I can hear you spiraling from here." "I'm not..." "You are. You're already thinking about everything that could go wrong. Every way this could end badly. Every reason to be terrified." She turned to face him. "But Jace, I need you to hear me. I'm having this baby, with or without your support. I prefer with, but I won't let your fear steal this joy from me." "That's not fair." "None of this is fair." "But it's happening. So you can either choose to be present and scared, or absent and safe. But you can't be both." He stared at her, his wife, the mother of his unborn child, and felt everything inside him war between terror and wonder. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted. "Neither do I. But we figure it out together, like we always do." He crossed to her, pulled her into his arms. "I'm scared. I know. What if something happens to you? Women die in childbirth all the time. What if... Then you raise our child, and you tell them every day how much I love them. But Jace, I'm strong, I'm healthy, and I'm not going anywhere." "You can't promise that." "No, but I can promise I'll fight like hell to stay. For you, for this baby, for us." He held her as the sun rose, feeling his whole world shift on its axis. And underneath the fear, he felt something else. Something he thought was lost to him forever. Joy. The pregnancy was difficult from the start. Evelyn was sick constantly. So weak, some days she couldn't leave bed. Jace hired a doctor to stay on the ranch, paid him triple his usual rate to be available at all hours. "This is excessive," Evelyn said one morning when Jace brought her breakfast in bed for the 4th week in a row. "The doctor says you need rest." "The doctor says a lot of things. Doesn't mean I have to listen to all of them." "Evelyn, please, just let me take care of you." She caught his hand. "I'm not made of glass, and I need to work. I need to feel useful." "You are useful. You're growing our child." "I'm also going crazy being stuck in this room while everyone else runs the ranch I helped build." Jace understood. He did. But every time she pushed herself, he saw Maggie's grave in his mind. "One more week," he bargained. "One more week of rest. Then you can go back to light duties. Deal?" "Light duties?" "No fence repair, no cattle work, just books and planning, and maybe some training with the new horses." She considered. "Fine. One more week. But Jace, you can't wrap me in cotton wool for 9 months." "Watch me try." Despite the sickness, Evelyn's pregnancy progressed. 4 months. 5. 6. With each passing week, Jace felt the fear lessen just slightly, replaced by cautious hope. Then came the storm. It started as a normal spring afternoon. Jace was in town picking up supplies when the sky turned black. By the time he got back to the ranch, the wind was howling and rain was coming down in sheets. Miguel met him at the barn. "Boss, we've got trouble. The creek's rising fast. If it breaches, the whole south pasture floods." "Get the hands. Move the cattle to high ground." "Already done. But Jace, Evelyn went out there." His blood ran cold. "What?" "Before the rain started. She was checking fence line. I sent someone after her, but they couldn't find her in the storm." Jace was on his horse before Miguel finished talking. He rode into the storm, shouting her name, his heart pounding so hard he thought it might break his ribs. He found her horse first, standing riderless near the creek. Panic flooded through him. "Evelyn!" "Here!" her voice came from below. "I'm down here!" He dismounted, looked over the edge of the embankment. She was 15 feet down, holding onto a tree root, the swollen creek raging just feet below her. "Don't move!" he shouted. "Not planning on it." He grabbed rope from his saddle, tied one end to his horse, the other around his waist. Then he went over the edge. The rain made everything slick. His boots slipped on the mud, his hands burned on the rope. But he kept moving, kept descending, until he reached her. "I've got you," he said, wrapping an arm around her waist. "The baby." "I know. Hold on to me." They climbed together, agonizingly slow. Every time she slipped, his heart stopped. Every time she cried out, he thought the worst. But they made it. They reached the top, collapsed on the muddy ground, both breathing hard. "Are you hurt?" he demanded. "I don't think so. The fall wasn't far. I just couldn't climb back up." "The baby?" She put a hand on her swollen stomach. "Still moving. I think we're okay." Jace pulled her close, rain streaming down both their faces. "Don't ever do that to me again." "Do what? Fall in a storm?" "Make me think I lost you." She pulled back to look at him. "Jace, I'm here. I'm okay. We're okay." But on the ride back, Evelyn started bleeding. The doctor worked through the night. Jace paced outside their bedroom, listening to Evelyn's muffled cries, feeling helpless in a way he'd never felt before. Miguel tried to get him to sit, to eat, to rest. But Jace couldn't. If he stopped moving, he'd have to face what might be happening in that room. Finally, just before dawn, the doctor emerged. "She's stable," he said. "The baby, too." Jace nearly collapsed with relief. Thank God. "But Mr. Harrison, She needs complete bed rest for the remainder of the pregnancy. No exceptions. Any stress, any exertion, and we could lose them both. How long? 3 months. Maybe 4 if the baby comes late. 3 months of Evelyn confined to bed. 3 months of watching her grow more restless, more frustrated, more trapped. He went into the bedroom. She was pale, exhausted, her hand resting on her stomach. "The doctor told you?" she asked. "Yeah. I'm sorry." "You have nothing to be sorry for." "I shouldn't have been out there. I knew the storm was coming. I just thought I had time." "Evelyn, stop. This isn't your fault." "Isn't it? I pushed too hard. I didn't listen when you told me to rest. And now—" Her voice broke. "What if I lose this baby because I was too stubborn?" He sat on the edge of the bed, took her hand. "You're not going to lose this baby. I won't let you." "You can't control everything, Jace." "I can control this. You'll rest. I'll take care of everything else. The ranch, the house, all of it. You just focus on staying healthy." "For 3 months?" "For as long as it takes." She looked at him, tears streaming down her face. "I'm scared." "Me too. But we're scared together, remember?" She nodded, and he held her until she fell asleep. The next 3 months were the longest of Jace's life. He ran the ranch, managed the household, and sat with Evelyn for hours every day. She read books he brought her from town. She helped with paperwork from bed. She planned improvements to the ranch she couldn't implement, and slowly, she grew bigger. 7 months. 8. 9. "I feel like a beached whale," she complained one evening. "You're beautiful." "You're a liar." "I'm your husband. I'm allowed to think my wife is beautiful, even when she's enormous with child." She threw a pillow at him. He caught it, laughing. "I can't wait for this to be over," she said. "I miss writing. I miss working. I miss feeling like myself." "Soon. Just a few more weeks." "The doctor said 4 weeks. That's basically forever." But the baby had other plans. Evelyn went into labor that night. The labor lasted 20 hours. 20 hours of Evelyn screaming and crying and cursing Jace for ever touching her. 20 hours of the doctor looking increasingly concerned. 20 hours of Jace thinking he was going to lose everything. "Something's wrong," the doctor said finally. "The baby's breech. I need to turn it." "Will that hurt her?" Jace demanded. "It's going to hurt regardless. But if we don't do this, we'll lose them both." Jace looked at Evelyn. She was exhausted, drenched in sweat, barely conscious between contractions. "Do it," she whispered. What followed was the worst thing Jace had ever witnessed. The doctor turned the baby manually while Evelyn screamed. Jace held her hands so tight he thought he might break it. "I can see the head," the doctor said finally. "One more push, Mrs. Harrison." "I can't." "Yes, you can," Jace said. "You're the strongest person I know. You can do this." She pushed, and pushed, and pushed. And then, suddenly, there was a cry, a baby's cry. "It's a girl," the doctor announced, holding up a tiny, red, screaming infant. Jace stared at his daughter in stunned silence. She was perfect. 10 fingers, 10 toes, a full head of dark hair like her mother. "Evelyn," he whispered. "It's a girl." But Evelyn didn't respond. Her eyes were closed, her face pale. "Doctor?" Jace's voice was sharp with panic. "She's bleeding. Too much. I need—" The doctor started barking orders at his assistant. Jace felt his world narrow to a single point. The doctor was working frantically. His daughter was crying in the corner, and Evelyn was dying. "Don't you dare," Jace said to his unconscious wife. "Don't you dare leave me. Not now. Not after everything." The doctor worked for what felt like hours, but was probably minutes. Finally, the bleeding slowed. Stopped. "She's stable," the doctor said, his voice exhausted. But it was close. Very close. Jace collapsed into the chair beside the bed, his whole body shaking. The assistant brought him his daughter, wrapped in a blanket. "She needs to eat," the assistant said gently. "Can you wake your wife?" "Evelyn," he touched her face. "Evelyn, wake up. Our daughter needs you." Her eyes fluttered open. "Jace?" "I'm here. We're all here. Look." He showed her the baby. Evelyn's face crumpled, and she started crying. "She's so beautiful," she whispered. "Just like her mother." The assistant helped position the baby to nurse. Evelyn was weak, but she managed. And as Jace watched his wife feed their daughter, he felt something shift inside him. He'd spent 8 years afraid of loving and losing. But looking at his family now, he realized something. The fear would always be there. But so would the love. And the love was bigger, stronger, worth every moment of terror. They named her Maggie. Evelyn suggested it one night when the baby was 3 days old. "Are you sure?" Jace asked. "She was part of your story, part of what made you who you are, and I think she'd be honored to have this little one carry her name." Jace looked at his daughter, sleeping peacefully in Evelyn's arms. Maggie Harrison. It fits. Recovery was slow but steady. The doctor warned them Evelyn might not be able to have more children. Her body had been through too much. "One miracle is enough," she said when he told her. "You're not disappointed?" "Jace, look at her. She's everything. How could I be disappointed?" He looked at their daughter, at his wife, at the life they'd built together, and realized she was right. This was enough. More than enough. 6 months later, Jace found himself standing on the hill overlooking the ranch. Evelyn stood beside him, Maggie strapped to her chest in a sling. The baby was cooing, reaching for everything, eyes wide with wonder. "You thinking about her?" Evelyn asked. "The first Maggie?" "Yeah, but not the way I used to." "What's different?" "I used to think about what I lost. Now I think about what she gave me. The capacity to love like that. The courage to try again." He looked at Evelyn. "She brought me to you, in a way. All those years of grief taught me how to recognize something real when it finally showed up on my doorstep. You give me too much credit. You were ready to change." "No, I was ready to hide forever. You wouldn't let me." She smiled, leaning against him. "Someone had to save you from yourself." They stood together watching the sunset paint the sky orange and gold. The ranch hands were finishing up for the day. Miguel was teaching the new hires how to properly secure the barn. Smoke rose from the bunkhouse chimney. Everything was exactly as it should be. "I love you," Jace said suddenly. "I don't say it enough, but I do. More than I ever thought possible." "I know. You show me every day." "How?" "The way you check on me every morning. The way you hold our daughter like she's the most precious thing in the world. The way you still get scared, but choose us anyway." She turned to look at him. "That's what love is, Jace. Not the absence of fear, but the choice to stay despite it." Little Maggie grabbed Jace's finger, holding tight. He looked down at her perfect small hand wrapped around his calloused, work-worn one. "You know what the richest cowboy in Texas has that 43 mail-order brides could never have given him?" Evelyn asked. "What?" A real family, built on trust and truth and choosing each other every single day. Jace pulled them both close, his wife and his daughter, his whole world in his arms. The setting sun cast long shadows across the land he'd inherited from his father, the land he'd built on for his daughter, the land that had witnessed his grief and his healing. And standing there, Jace Harrison finally understood what true wealth was. It wasn't measured in acres or cattle or gold in the bank. It was measured in moments like this, in the woman who'd knocked on his door and refused to let him waste his life hiding from love, in the daughter who'd inherited both her mother's strength and her father's stubborn heart, in the family they'd fought for, bled for, nearly died for. The mysterious stranger who'd stolen his heart had given him something far more valuable in return. She'd given him back his life, his hope, and his future, proving once and for all that the greatest fortune a man can possess is the courage to love again when everything inside him says it's safer to stay broken.